How many of you are using Snowflake today? So it's almost, the majority, so 50, 60%. That is brilliant. And I assume you are either directly or indirectly also familiar with BI. You're using BI, you've purchased BI, or you're an end user of BI. You pretty much should so. Otherwise, I cannot believe that you're using Excel on a daily basis. So wonderful. And the very last one, I think that's the most intriguing one, is have you heard about data products before? Yes, if you have. Okay, it's quite good, which means that Snowflake is doing a good job as well. Wonderful. So to get started, this is me by means of introduction. I'm the founder and the CEO of Astrato Analytics. I've been in the BI space for many, many years, very close to Qlik. Originally, I've been working with Qlik, which is one of the three, I would say, competitors alongside Tableau and Power BI. And having worked in the BI space for 10 years, I've almost made it my missions to disrupt it in the cloud with Astrato, that we're going to talk a little bit about today. So this is me, I would say, a German in its natural habitat, the Oktoberfest. I highly recommend it. Make sure you know it is a celebration of October that takes place in September. It's actually not taking place in October. So Astrato itself, for those of you who heard about for the first time, is a BI analytics layer that is for business users that sits on top of the Snowflake's data cloud, almost like a nice little tablecloth. So we're going to go a bit more detail as well overall. Effectively, right, we're all about communicating data to end users in many forms. That could be dashboards, charts, visualizations, tables, but also offering a UI that allows end users to also input data, which is actually one of the huge differentiation that we're doubling down on, which is right back. Under this Snowflake ecosystem, you can find us under BI. We're also a Snowflake-ready partner in that category. Other, I would say, landscapes put us closer to visualization. At the end of the day, as long as we're the interface between end users, humans, and data is, I think, where we find our space. But I'm not going to do a product demo at this point. I'll do that later. I'm going to talk a bit about the evolution of BI to data products, which is the theme of today. And I think where we are today with most of our existing BI infrastructure is we're probably somewhere here in the middle. So we're all used to static reports, the Monday morning sales report that's being distributed to us via PDF and email. And I think if you're also data practitioners like myself, you've probably made it your career to get people away from static reports to interactive BI that allows people to consume, explore insights, and get more value out of their data. And I think this is generally where status is today. And I think, though, there is a next frontier, not just with data in Snowflake, but also generally in BI, which is the cloud-native self-service data product category. So what does it mean? So the obvious problem that I guess every organization today sits at is the proliferation of data, both in data volumes, data types, and generally the data velocity. There's even new terms being coined, such as the time value of data, that after a few seconds, the data becomes not as valuable anymore. So timeliness is important, and that has accelerated through the cloud. There's more devices, more systems capturing data, more metadata, more different types of data, structured data, unstructured data. We have a presentation later with Snowflake as well, who probably will share more on that. But the reality is, unless that data gets to the hand of an end user to drive a business decision, it is an asset that sits there unrealized. So that's where we are a little bit today, and that is a problem that we need to solve. How do we get data to the end users for our decision making? And the problems are two. One is legacy traditional BI simply has technological limitations. I'm going to get to that. And the second problem is, well, if we are historically reliant on IT to build dashboards, analytics, and data products for us, they are becoming a bottleneck. They just cannot physically handle any more of a request, especially at the velocity, even though they want to, and we all have the demand. So The answer to this is that this is actually economic value lost. And I think these are a couple of interesting survey results. But I think what is staggering is the amount of money that is being invested in cloud computing, from AWS, Azure, to infrastructure, to data infrastructure, data pipelines. But only 1 in 4 CEOs says we are actually data-driven, right? And when I say data-driven, I'm thinking about companies such as Netflix, such as Uber, who literally have data-driven decision-making across the entire organization. And that is basically an opportunity to solve. I think that all of us that are working with BI ultimately want to solve. Like, we want everyone to be using analytics and data. And I think that's the key theme here. That historically, we've been focusing more on the high-value use cases. Dashboards for the CEO. I don't know how many of you have been involved in one of those projects that is super urgent, super important, only to realize, I guess, that a CEO doesn't get paid to sit in front of a computer. He gets paid to have meetings, drive commercial contracts. But I think where it really matters is getting BI, getting data effectively to the frontline workers. The ones who are using data on a daily basis to drive operational efficiency, more revenue opportunities, you can name this, to save time or money. But at the end of the day, this is where we need to get to, and I believe this is where data products play a very important role. Easy, BI for everyone. I think that's the dream I've been working on myself. Let's get more licenses, give everyone access to it. But why doesn't it work? I think personally, and that's another discussion point for today, I think it's an endless struggle between, do we centralize data or we decentralize data? And are we IT-centric with a center of excellence servicing all the requirements across the business? Or do we facilitate software and provide business users with what they need, the solution they need, as they need, and we're just enabling them? And it's almost, over the last 10, 15 years, it goes almost in cycles. And those cycles are either driven by technological advancements, right? There's more need for analytics than the business can, even the IT can provide. So all of a sudden, we have emergence of shadow IT. And then IT advancements slow down, and we see benefits by having IT managing it centrally, so it moves almost in circles. And I think, every CIO, CTO is almost, moving in cycles, driving a centralization strategy, and then moves to the next organization, and then a new CTO comes in and says, we should decentralize. There's pros and cons in both, but I don't think there's an equilibrium, and that has been a forever battle on both sides, right? Which I guess you guys may or may not have stories with, but I don't think they're fair, and I think both sides are actually equally right. Can this be solved once and for all? I believe it can be. So this is where data products come into play. Now, this is I think, relatively new term, even though data products kind of make sense on its own. And this is a definition I took from Sanj Mo from a blog. It doesn't matter because they all kind of sound very similar. And at this point, I guess every organization, every vendor will have their own definition. I think, though, how it summarizes in a sense is that a data product is a combination of a data set or a data model, a domain, so some level of business expertise, be it a definition of metrics, or be it much more business logic, and a way to surface that data and domain to third parties. APIs or visualizations. At the end of the day, I guess a dashboard is a data product, if you ask me. Actually, I had a conversation with somebody else who said, actually, a materialized view is a data product as well. And I don't think they're wrong. We can argue about definition, and I think this is going to confuse a lot of people. I think, though, where there's a common denominator, and I think this is the thing that matters most, is it is about ownership. It is about the business having ownership over these three components, or one component, effectively. So this is ultimately I would say, the decentralization of ownership and data that is ultimately required in order to get both worlds running. Now, we've tried this before, right? Because we have dashboards. Why is a dashboard not a data product? Well, I believe there's two things that need to be solved for that. And these are being solved in the cloud with Snowflake in particular and Astrato sitting on top of Snowflake. First of all, the technical infrastructure was never there for data products. It was never there for data products because we did not have the scalability of the cloud. What do I mean by that? And I'm talking from a context of BI. There's also data products for machine learning, for advanced analytics. We're talking about BI here. So data is moving to the cloud. I don't think there's any deniability about that happening. But what we're seeing with traditional BI is that they were not built for a world in the cloud. They were built for a very inefficient on-premise infrastructure where it was actually quite good to take the data out of a warehouse, take the data out of SAP, take the data out of a spreadsheet and mix it and almost make a little mini data warehouse in the BI tool itself. That was a necessity. Talking about cycles, when the data warehouse historically, Oracle and so on, was not flexible enough, you had to find the flexibility in the BI tool. So all of a sudden, the business teams became more and more empowered. But that became a liability because now you had copies of data, you have fragmented single sources of truth, you had peripheral business logic as stored in the BI tools, and that becomes a liability now. Now, in the cloud, traditional BI has not changed. Qlik, for example, has an in-memory technology, moves data out of Snowflake into another cloud. Tableau they have a live query mode, but predominantly they're made towards data prep, moving things, and then building proprietary expressions. And Power BI also has a live mode, but 70% of DAX expressions and Power Query expressions are actually made for an import mode. And that creates problems. And this is not a coincidence why BI was built the way it was. As I said, for an on-premise world, BI had to be good at a lot of things. It had to be good at taking data out, store it, transform it, and at the end, do what BI actually is meant to do, which is visualize. But it had to do all the other steps before in order to get to a visualization. Now, in the cloud, what is happening is that Snowflake is taking over those components of the BI stack. Snowflake is good at ingestion, especially in combination with other technology vendors such as Fivetran, Matillion. You store the data in Snowflake, and storage is cheap, and you have infinite scalability if you want to, and you can be quite smart about that. So you don't have to wait to upgrade your servers. And all the transformation is better done in Snowflake because we want to reuse it across outside of a BI tool as well. So now BI, in order to fit that new paradigm, needs to become visualization and visualization only. It shouldn't be doing the other bits. And I think this is the big change that not just Astrato does, but also Sigma, which is another partner, or ThoughtSpot, equally as much. And that is achieved with what we call, on a technical place, 100% push-down SQL. So Astrato, or Sigma, or ThoughtSpot are basically generating SQL. It's being executed in Snowflake, where the data sits, and they're presenting the data in live. Now, this paradigm was not possible on-premise because the warehouse was slow. In the cloud, Snowflake is fast. So all of a sudden, I have immediate response times. I don't have any copying of data. I have a single source of truth, which makes IT hard go faster. And we are centrally governed and secured, which again makes IT happy. So all of a sudden, I'm blending the power of business building in a governed set of data and environment that is managed by IT. And this is only possible for first time in the cloud in a combination with Snowflake and Astrato as an example. And of course, that's just the benchmark. And there's many more things that you can do also in Snowflake. I think Snowflake is more than just a SQL warehouse. It can also support Python workloads with Snowpark. It can also support data at scale, small data, big data. All of a sudden, there's no question anymore about these things, and it's as real time as you want it to be. And of course, with Cortex, you can now also have it produce, answers to questions that you like. That's a technological advancement that enables data products. But that's all great. So now we can give every single end user the ability to build. And IT is not worried anymore because they control the data. They own the data governance. They're on top of that. But why hasn't that worked out yet? I mean, self-service is a term has existed, I think, for over 7 years. Everything is self-service. Alteryx apparently is self-service as well, even though it's a transformation technology. The problem with self-service, BI in particular, is this. Self-service, this cannot be self-service because it requires code. And if we want to enable self-service for non-technical staff who have not made BI or if statements or coding their career choice, this will not work for them. So even though it is simple, I think for this crowd here, I don't think these are complex expressions, but the reality is the minute you do have to write something like that, the moment you have to transform data is when you lose, I would say, the frontline workers or any sort of analyst. And these are typical training times I got from GPT on how long it takes to literally ramp up basically on each of these technologies. And that is if you're dedicated and successful, and I would say you have a minimum level of technical acumen. For most of it doesn't work. So you need a BI team, but maybe not any longer. So one thing, as I mentioned here, on decoupling from the typical BI components into what moves into Snowflake and what doesn't move into Snowflake, architecturally, it has a lot of benefits, but also from a self-service perspective, and enables for the first time, I believe, one thing that wasn't possible before, which is the difficult stuff of preparing a data set, making analytics ready, that's being done by IT. And the easy stuff, which is what actually dashboarding analytics and getting a question to your answer is all about, that now can be done using a simple UI, using drag and drop, and that's where the business user can focus on effectively. And what does it mean? It means that what becomes an expression language, where you have to write something in DAX, for example, can become a 100% no-code UI, where you can drag and drop things into the screen. You can build measures, expressions, either using GenAI or by using basically a white label format. We're going to show the product later, but the idea is that this generates SQL and gets executed, but you don't have to write the SQL yourself. And I believe this is all of a sudden blending for the first time the best of both worlds. Business user, non-skilled, can use it. It's as easy as PowerPoint. And the difficult stuff, which is the data preparation, data migration, ingestion, with Snowflake in place, is already done. Almost before I conclude, this is the Gutenberg press. So it's a German invention, so that's why I thought I'd bring it up. But the interesting bit is, for those of you who don't know, the Gutenberg press is what allowed the printing, the mass printing of books that ultimately changed the trajectory, I believe, of humanity thereafter. I tried to draw some analogies, and I think there are some in a sense, because before the Gutenberg press, writing books was quite reserved to, I would say, to churches, monasteries. They were writing, it took a lot of time to write a book. And I think the most important aspect of the period before the press was there was a lot of fragmented knowledge that was inconsistent, it was not aligned, people were reinventing the same thing between different areas. And it was also not accessible to a lot of people. And just the Gutenberg press itself that allowed people to print books en masse and distribute in masse is basically what led to, I would say, a transformational democratization of knowledge. Some trouble with the church, of course, as people became more knowledgeable, I would say. But the thing is, it was not just the Gutenberg press on its own, because you needed another innovation at the same time, which was the innovations around paper. So the ability to create paper and print on paper and produce it cheaply and sustainably and durably was what was needed. Otherwise, the press on its own would have not had the success. So where we see it, and I'm personally bullish than ever, I'm a founder, that's my job, but I see Snowflake as the press, the infrastructure that in the cloud has innovated and has allowed us to load data at scale, capture data at scale, transform data in infinite ways and new possibilities. And we see Astrato, hopefully, as the paper that allows everyone and anyone to consume the data in any shape and form that they prefer. And these are the data products, effectively, that will come to fruition. So with this, I'm kicking off today's session. So we have 4 more speakers included, Snowflake, who's going to be joining me right away. We take some breaks in between. And then you're going to hear stories from Melissa Pluke, who's the co-founder of SwitchRCM, who has built an entire data product on her own that is actually monetizable and revenue generating in Astrato and Snowflake. Jason Michaelides, who is one of our implementation partners, will tell the story of transforming or moving a BI infrastructure into the cloud on Astrato on Snowflake and how difficult it was and why he did it. And I think we also have, Claudio from GoBubble, the CTO, who's going to tell us as well how they have. Is it a monetizable product that you have? It is. So it is also a customer-facing data product that they've actually built entirely on their own with very little help. So with this, thank you very much. And handing over to Snowflake, I believe.
Great. Can you hear me at the back? Good. So a little bit of an icebreaker here. Any movie buffs here? Can anybody tell me what this number is? Absolutely. So if you've seen the film Beetlejuice, when he dies, this is his waiting list number to get to the afterlife. That can be a little bit like asking IT for extra resources so you can power your dashboard. Right, so what I am going to talk about today is just give you a very little hint preview into Snowflake, why people use Snowflake and Astrato, because we'll push the compute down to Snowflake, leveraging the power of the platform. So the challenges that we typically see, and these are typical sort of database challenges. We don't just see it with a few customers, we see it with a lot of on-premise type of technology and people that build their cloud environments with quite static platforms. So Snowflake is a real agile animal. But what we see is when people are starting to run analytics, there's a lack of resources, lack of compute. Sometimes you have to stick in a queue, talking to IT. Can you create me a dashboard? Can you create me some information that I can work off? But there's always a bit of a constraint and there's always a cost associated to being able to leverage those resources. Sometimes you'll have to get people clone the database and put it into a reporting database so you can allow your users to have an interactive environment so you don't cause any contention. So adding a self-service type of tool on top of a data platform can add unknown predictability of your resources. And this is where Snowflake can possibly step in. So we see a lack of resources can be a challenge. The volume and variability. So people might want to be storing or analyzing petabytes of data. So where on earth are you going to find the petabytes of data? Where can you store the petabytes of data? You might have semi-structured data, you might have unstructured data, as well as structured data, and you want to be able to incorporate that, refine that, put that through some visualization and be able to interact with it. So it could be different ways of interacting with data, whether you're using Python, Scala or Java, not just the standard SQL. Also the context. So when people access data sets within a data source, depending on their permissions and their access controls, they might not get the same results as everybody because they're not allowed to see that data. So there's quite a few little challenges that we see out there in the marketplace at the moment when people want to do self-service analytics. So how does Snowflake solve that? Well, first of all, we provide a platform that's very easy to use. And what I mean by ease of use, you don't do any installation, you don't do any upgrades, you don't do any maintenance. It's a true 24/7 system where you just write your queries and run, or you stick your visualization on top and start interacting with data. Scalability. We have no limitation with resources. The one thing about Snowflake, you can have as much compute running or as little as you want. And when it's not being used, it shuts itself down. But if someone should come along and want to run a report or a dashboard, the moment they request it, Snowflake will start in about 50 to 100 milliseconds and start facilitating the user request. So it's really efficient with resources. So you can have huge lumps of compute if you need to, but you might only run it for 20, 30 seconds, and the rest of the time, it shuts down. And modality. So what I mean by that is we will have things, if you're restricted from accessing data, you might want to use some machine learning capabilities or user-defined functions to leverage and pull out the data in its raw level, aggregate it for you and give it to you in a way that you are allowed to see it. So the reason why we are talking about Snowflake being one of the sources, now there's lots of data sources that you can pick from. We like to think that Astro Analytics and Snowflake is a marriage made in heaven because we are unique with our agility to start and stop that compute, but also instantly and dynamically grow that compute to meet your requirements. So really, I'm talking about the boring data source that sits underneath the lovely, flashy visualization that holds all your data. And Snowflake is a single platform. It's a true SaaS. So if you want to get it, like I say, no installation, you sign up and you're ready to go, plop your data in there, stick your visualization over the top, and there should be no restriction. So there is one thing I would always say about Snowflake, is it eliminates scalability issues, performance problems, concurrency issues, and availability. Not once do you need to take the system down. It's a true 24/7, 365 system, which means you don't need anybody to play around with it as well. But like I say, it's a single platform. You can store all your data in there. So we have some customers with a couple of 100 megabytes, but then we have some very large customers that are playing around with 200-300 petabytes. But they're also using semi-structured data. So if they don't want to do any pre-processing with JSON data or XML, you can just load it straight into Snowflake. It's for all your users. We have no limitation on the number of users that you bring to the platform. So the largest customer we have has about 14,000 users that are all accessing the system concurrently in an orchestrated environment. I've said about near zero maintenance. Now, when our compute runs, that's when you pay for using Snowflake. It's billed per second. So like I say, if you only use it for 90 seconds, it will shut itself down. That's it. Don't have to worry about it anymore. Don't even have to worry about costs running out of control. Because like I say, it will shut down. It won't cost anything. We can put controls and guardrails to make sure nothing silly happens. It's a centralized platform for your governance and security. So we have things like dynamic data masking and row-level security, so we can restrict what information can be accessed. So we've moved a long way. So that's more or less the salesy pitch. But here's the architecture of Snowflake. So we like to think of it as a multi-layer architecture. So in the middle here, we have interoperable storage. So like I say, we separate storage and compute, and we can scale each independently. And it doesn't matter what type of data you want, we will be able to manage and process that. Next comes our compute layer. Again, we scale in 3 ways. So you can scale specifically for each different workload, or you can scale up and down for performance, or out it in for concurrency. Excuse me a second, let me a little sip. So that's really the core part, Snowflake, the separation of the storage and compute. And then built into our platform, we have Cortex AI. That is our new generative AI platform. And we have a load of development teams at the moment that are building out our Cortex AI. And then the last ring really is our third layer, which is our cloud services layer. That's our control plane, and that controls the storage and compute. And that's all within one security boundary. So Snowflake has, I think it's 40 deployments today, globally, different clouds, AWS, Azure, or Google. And when we're actually communicating between Snowflake and Snowflake, we're doing that in a very secure environment, and that's called SnowGrid. Now, when you put your data into this platform, you can unlock multiple workloads and multiple use cases. So we talk about BI and reporting. How do we interact and provide that user experience? However, these are the type of workloads we support additionally. So we can be a data warehouse, we can be a data lake, we can be a data mesh, we can be a Unistore. Now, when I say Unistore, that means we can do transactional processing and analytical processing on the same platform. But essentially, we provide a real flexible, agile, instant dynamic platform to powering your visualization.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. I think it sets the scene a little bit how it all works together. You know, they say when a vendor hosts an event, don't do vendor demos, don't do vendor demos. But with a visualization, a BI tool is actually That's an exciting part. So we're definitely going to have that part later on, where I'm going to show you my top 5 favorite data products in Astrato and how it works behind the scenes. But before we do that, we have a next presenter, which is Melissa Pluke, who will be coming here, and she'll actually show you what she's achieved in Astrato, which is actually remarkable and quite honestly, an absolute true inspiration to have been working with her and her team over the last 2.5 years. So I'm welcoming here to the stage Melissa. If you want to, thank you. And after our presentation, we'll take a short break for coffee discussions, and then we'll get back to afterwards. So thank you so much. And I must say, Melissa has flown all the way from Los Angeles here to meet us in Astrato and for this event today. So thank you very much for taking the trip.
Thank you.
And so you just woke up.
Yes, I'm a little jet lagged. All
Fantastic.
right. Thank you. All right. So my name is Melissa Pluke. I am one of the co-founders of SwitchRCM. I currently serve as our Chief Analytics Officer. And today I just wanted to go through what I'm going to talk about. First, I'll give you a background on our company, and then the legacy tools that we were using when we started the company. Next, just the triggers for why we decided that we needed to move off of those tools, what we evaluated, the competitors that we evaluated, what we ultimately decided, the lessons learned on our journey. We're a very small company, so we had a lot of growing to do when we did modernize. I do want to tell you the cost of ownership for the legacy products versus Snowflake and Astrato today, and then what our plans are for 2025. And then I will wrap up and do a demo of whatever you would like me to show. Yeah. Yes. All right. So as I said, I'm one of the founders of SwitchRCM. I founded the company with my husband. We have worked together for 15 years now. I know a lot of people cannot do that. I've never not worked with my husband in my professional career. We both started our careers at Epic Software. It's a electronic medical records company in the US. They are also now, they've expanded here. They are in the Netherlands. They are in Dubai. I worked in the US. They provide access to your electronic medical records throughout the country, regardless of what hospital that you are at. Where my role there, and as well as my husband's, was an implementation coordinator. So what we did was we worked with the people in operations at the hospitals, specifically in the revenue cycle area, so billing, payments, insurance, that kind of thing. And we worked with the software developers at Epic. So we were kind of tech adjacent, if you will. I'm not a technical person. I have picked up a few things along the way, but we were not software developers by any means. That is important to my long-term journey to Astrato. How we actually, let me back up. After we left Epic, we worked in various roles together. I went into product management at a few companies, still staying in the healthcare arena. My husband went into hospital operations, working at various hospitals throughout the US. And that's actually how we got started. I was working in product management and then moved over to work in analytics at another healthcare analytics company. And he was working at Cedars-Sinai, which is a very prominent hospital in Los Angeles. And knowing they use Epic software, so he knew that the data was in the software and available, but in his role, he couldn't get to the data. So he would constantly come home and complain, I can't do my job because I can't get to the data. I need to make decisions on how we need to do things, how we need to go, what directions we need to go, but I can't get to that data. So after a year or so of listening to him complain, I finally said, you know what, I can build that for you. Stop complaining, I will quit my job and we'll start a company and I will build that. So again, I was not a technical person. I worked in Qlik, Qlik Sense, and Tableau at my former company. I did the front-end BI analytics. So I quit my job, we started a company, and we focused on that Epic analytics. We were familiar with Epic. We knew the data, we knew how to get the data out of the system, and I knew how to transform it and present it in a logical manner. That was our premier product. That was the Epic Analytics. And then we quickly moved to something called underpayments. So how many of you are familiar with US healthcare? Very few of you. Okay. So a quick background. It's very different than here. It's a mess. The majority of us have private insurance. So elderly, those that have low income or disabilities, they're given government insurance. The rest of us have to either purchase our own healthcare insurance on the market, or it's provided by our employer. And, excuse me, those insurances, they, for example, I have an insurance called Blue Cross. That insurance, with all of the hospitals across the US, will negotiate with the hospitals for how much they are willing to pay for a service. So if I go to the hospital, and I live in Los Angeles, many hospitals there. If I go to Cedars-Sinai and go to a doctor's appointment, it may cost $300. If I go to UCLA, which is another hospital in the area, it might cost $400 for the exact same service. That's just kind of how the US healthcare market works. And in addition to those negotiations and the confusion from that, there's a big push in the US to combine hospitals. So smaller hospitals are essentially getting eaten up by larger organizations. Large organizations are merging to create conglomerates across states. So there's a lot of change in those contracts. There's a lot of change in who owns what, and that leads to changes in what needs to be paid and how much they're going to pay. So with that, there's a lot of underpayments. So what an underpayment is where a hospital will negotiate with that insurance, so in my case, Blue Cross, and they agree to pay, let's say, $300 for that service. As the hospitals acquire additional smaller hospitals, or as additional doctors come on to work at the facility, they're not always getting paid that $300. They might get paid whatever the previous negotiation was, or the base rates that are the lower for the small independent providers. And it is not the insurance company's responsibility to figure that out. It is on the hospitals to figure that out. The hospitals don't have access to their data to do that. Our first client that we went live with, in the first year, we found $6 million in underpayments for them. So it's a big issue in the US. So that is our premier product right now that we run through Astrato and Snowflake. All right, that said, when we first got started, we started with QlikSense. I was familiar with working with QlikView and QlikSense. Are most of you familiar with those two products? Okay. And we also use VizLib, Martin's previous company. We didn't start out with VizLib, we added that on later. And in addition to those, we used ClearData. ClearData was a service that helped us manage our AWS products. So we ingested all of the data into AWS, we stored it in S3, brought it into QlikSense, and then transformed it there. ClearData was great to get started, given we were not technical people. That said, they charge roughly 4 times what AWS charges, so, as a fee on top of the actual AWS for the service that they provide. So it was not leaving us any room for profit. About 6 months, 9 months into our journey, our CTO, who also happens to be my brother, came on. Yes, he kept it in the family for a while. My brother, the CTO, he has a master's in computer engineering and machine learning. So he's much more technical than Nate and I. He came on board right out of the military and then college, and he brought, the first thing that he did was bring our AWS into a self-managed thing. So that cut out that 4 times cost, which allowed us to, the 3 of us, to have moderate salaries and continue on. At that point, we still had the 1 client. None of us are salespeople. I am very much a behind the scenes person, so I'm doing this as a favor for you. But yes, very, very much behind the scenes person. And with a small company, we we didn't grow. Life got in the way. So it was the three of us and one client for a long time. We had a few kids. I moved across the country. I moved back across the country. Ryan and his wife moved across the country, had a couple kids. COVID happened. And then the end of 2021, we realized, you know what, we need to do something. So we hired a salesperson and we kind of got serious about growing. So at that point in time, we had 2 or 3 of the largest hospitals in the US looking at our products. And we got a little worried. Our Qlik servers, they cost us for the one client roughly $30,000 a year. Qlik, or our AWS, I'm sorry. Our Qlik services were roughly $50 a user, and we had about 100 users on our Qlik. So it was not cheap to run. In addition to that, we, in the US, you have to be HIPAA compliant, which is, I don't know if that's a thing here. Okay. It takes a lot of time to manage that on your AWS servers, and that was not really our focus of our company. We wanted to provide the value that I talked about with the underpayments and the analytics. We didn't want to manage servers. And given we were small, it was really taking a lot of our time. So that was a concern for us as we grew. And then in addition with Qlik, we were having customer service issues. We are obviously, as I said, a small company. We were a small fish in a big pond with Qlik. We were really struggling to get them to pay any attention to us. We couldn't get them to return a phone call. I actually couldn't even get them to return a phone call to pay my bill. They just didn't care about the little guys. And we had issues with that. We had issues with our account representatives just turning over and not answering our calls, not answering our emails. It was to the point that we were afraid to upgrade because if we did have an issue, there was no one to call. There was no one to help us. We got to the point that we just stopped upgrading our Qlik. We had it on a version and we just kept that version. So Qlik was releasing new features that we weren't getting because we were afraid to upgrade. In addition to that, we had some customization issues. If you look at Qlik or if you look at Tableau, you know it's Qlik. You know it's Tableau. In the US healthcare market, most hospitals have Qlik or Tableau themselves. So they do their own dashboards, very simple dashboards for the most part. Some are very sophisticated, but for the most part, just basic dashboards. So when we went in to sell, the customers, the potential customers are looking at it and saying, oh, that's Qlik. We have that already. We don't need you. When we truly are, as I said, we found $6 million for our first client in the first year. But when they see Qlik, they immediately were like, nope, we don't need you. We can do this ourselves. So that was an issue, and that's what led us to Vizlib at the beginning, because that did help us customize our Qlik Sense quite a bit, but it still wasn't enough. As I said, we're at one client. I think we had 2 smaller ones coming in at that point in time, and we were already worried about our slow load times. We had 2 types of data. The Epic Analytics, they reloaded on a daily basis. Because of the way the healthcare works, they could not give us the data until 5:30 a.m. And it was taking roughly 2 hours for our multi-node Qlik setup to run that data on a daily basis. We are talking per client about 100 million lines of data for that daily reload. So it's a lot of data. And then for our underpayments, we have roughly 1.2 billion lines of data right now. So it's a lot of data. So I understand it takes time, but especially with the start of COVID and more people working from home, they're working earlier. So it was butting up against our reload times that we had to tell our customers, hey, don't log in until 8 a.m. because it's still reloading. That's not a great look. So as we were growing, that was a constant fear of ours. So that really triggered us to start looking for something else. All right. So at that point in time, we started looking at Qlik Cloud, Power BI, Sigma, and Astrato. Qlik Cloud, they were really pushing us to move to the cloud. That said, because of our experience with them, I wasn't too thrilled about that idea. That said, we evaluated it, and given that our data size, the base package was roughly what we were paying with AWS and Qlik Enterprise at that point in time. However, with the size of data, we had to upgrade quite a few tiers, and it would have taken all of our profit. So that was out. Power BI was a little bit cheaper at the time. That said, I was still afraid that we would be a small fish in a big pond. And I knew it wasn't like the next big thing. I knew something like Sigma or Astrato was what people would be moving to. So Sigma's a great company too. Astrato, though, honestly, Martin's team has, when we used VizLib for quite a few years before moving over, the customer service that we got and the attention that we got as a small client was, I have not had customer service that impeccable. So we ultimately decided to take a risk on a newer company, went with Astrato, and we've been thrilled. So with that, other things that we considered were beyond the amazing customer service was the customization. Our dashboards do not look like an Astrato dashboard, because there is no Astrato dashboard. It is all customized. It looks like a SwitchRCM dashboard. And now our customers or our potential customers aren't coming in and seeing something that they think that they can build themselves. It is something that we have built. It is our brand. Next, Astrato has actions. I don't know if you all are familiar with those. Actions are amazing. I will show you one or two simple ones that we've made, but they allow you to navigate through the pages, really guide your users based on what they've clicked to what they see and what pages they visit, and navigate them to show them their journey through the data depending on what they have selected. Next, one thing that we had used previously and that we're very excited to start using again is WriteBack. WriteBack allows your users to enter their own data on the screen and bring it back into the workflow instantly. So they can make changes, they can tag things, they can address issues, they can tag their coworkers, a note for their coworkers to look at something. It's a very, very nice feature. Lastly, for Astrato, the ease of use. So Martin had mentioned I am the one that built all of our dashboards. We do have others that have come on board since then. We had one employee who he has never worked in BI, and he came on as an analyst. He is working with our customers to provide value, not build dashboards. He had some free time and was interested in it. I gave him access and literally no direction, not a single thing. I was backed up at the time and I said, you know what, if you want to play around with it, you can. I don't have time to show you anything. And he's now on my team. He figured it out himself. He had a knack for it. He was able to figure out the actions that I was referring to without any assistance. He has no technical background, no BI background. It was very easy for him to pick up. He loved it and moved over to my team. And he is one of the 3 on my team that builds dashboards now. With that, we were also evaluating Redshift, Postgres, and Snowflake. At the time that we switched to Astrato did not have a Redshift connector. They do now, but that was off the table because we were committed to Astrato. So we evaluated Postgres and Snowflake. Our CTO uses Postgres in some of our non-analytic products. So he was gunning for Postgres. And with the recommendation from Astrato, I was looking at Snowflake. So we loaded data into both and compared, and Snowflake was significantly faster. So that was our ultimate decision to go with Snowflake. It is also, beyond the speed, the ease of use compared to us managing AWS ourselves was unbelievable. We don't have to worry about upgrading our servers, making sure our servers are on the right instance and this and that, and it's just done for you. You sign up for a tier. We signed up for a HIPAA compliant tier. And if we need to make our warehouses bigger or our compute bigger, it's a button click and that's it. So that's what we were looking for, and that's what they were able to provide for us. Finally, the standard language. So Qlik Sense is what we built everything in. So we were using Qlik's language. It is very hard to find someone in the healthcare revenue space that knows how to build in Qlik. So moving to something that was a standard language using SQL was allowed us to open up our doors for more people to apply to be data engineers at our company, because way more people know SQL than they do Qlik. All right. So we actually didn't have too many surprises. Pierce asked me to talk about surprises that we had on our journey. It was pretty clear to us. Snowflake was a little unknown as far as the pricing. We essentially just trusted them that their estimates for what we were going to spend were going to be accurate, and they were. But we did have some lessons learned. The first one was a big one for us. When we switched from only writing in Qlik. None of us had SQL experience, so we had to learn SQL. We switched from going from Qlik to Astrato. We switched to use dbt to write all of our SQL in that gets pushed up into Snowflake. So we're learning a lot of new things. We also started with a new data model that was brand new that we didn't do previously, and it is the most difficult data model in our workbooks today. So if you were moving over, I would highly recommend starting with something you were familiar with, so you can easily compare it to what you were doing before and don't have to start from scratch. The second lessons learned that we had were we learned the basics of Snowflake. We did not learn all of the features. So we did not implement row-level security or clustering, which would have helped us immensely, and it is something on our roadmap for 2025. So right now we have all of our clients for our Epic Analytics in different databases, which means that we have to update each database every time we make a change or an addition, which is obviously not scalable. So lessons learned on that would be do the Snowflake training, do the certifications, and learn more beyond the basics. All right, so our cost of ownership. It is not quite apples to apples here as far as our legacy costs versus our current and future costs, because we had one client previously. Now we have 16, and one of our clients is actually a competitor of ours that was trying to build the underpayments application that we built. They finally exited the market and brought all of their clients to us because they couldn't do it. So they have quite a few clients under their individual clients. So we have a lot of clients now, whereas previously we had one or two on Qlik. So our total cost of ownership for 100 users for Qlik Sense and Vizlib together was about $50 per user per month. Our AWS servers, as I said, were roughly $30,000 a year for one client. In addition to the hard costs, the time to implement those things, the time to maintain them and upgrade them, that is something that you need to consider. That was time that I spent away from building dashboards and writing SQL. And that was time that our CTO spent away upgrading servers and things instead of doing his job. In addition to the anxiety of not knowing whether we were going to have someone to help us if we needed to. Our current costs for Astrato, we are on an enterprise license, so we don't have to worry about a per user per month cost anymore. So that allows us to be more open with our clients and not so how many users do you need? If you need more, we're going to have to pay more. So we can be more open with our I'm forgetting the word, contracts with our clients. For Snowflake, we are paying roughly about $100,000 a year now, which is what we were expecting with that many clients. We are actually looking to save on Snowflake, and our costs will go down by about 70% going forward in 2025 with a product called EDI Analytics. It is a native app in Snowflake. Are any of you familiar with X12? No. Okay. So X12 is heavily used in the healthcare industry, in the retail industry, in transport, banking. It's basically a standard way to deliver data. It is not a flat file. It is a very complex way of sending and receiving data. EDI Analytics is actually owned by our CTO in his spare time. They have figured out a way to parse that data in a quicker manner than we do via SQL. They do it in a native app. I honestly don't know how they do it in Snowflake. We are moving to ingest that data, and that will save us about 70% of our Snowflake costs. So next year, our Snowflake costs will be significantly cheaper than what they were with our single client with our 16 now. Additional goals for next year would be machine learning. So we are hoping to, and I will show you in a demo of our underpayments product, we are hoping to automate more of that via machine learning. And I mentioned we were going to do row level security. So I actually just hired someone that is starting on Monday, that their whole project is going to be combining all of our databases into one and implementing row level security. And then the three that I'm most excited about are we are going to be embedding Astrato into our own portal. So we do things beyond analytics that I didn't mention today, and we have a portal for those products. We are going to be embedding Astrato dashboards into that, so we have a seamless view for all of our clients that do use more than one of our products. We are also going to be implementing Write Back for our underpayments product, and then the one I am most excited about is automated reporting. So automated reporting came out in Astrato this year, and what that does is it takes your dashboards, and as much as all of us in BI don't want to admit it, clients like Excel. So it takes your dashboards, your beautiful dashboards, and your beautiful reporting, puts it into a formatted Excel and can mail it out to your clients. So healthcare in the US at least is very antiquated. They don't like logging into dashboards. They just want something in their email. So we are going to be working with that in the upcoming year. And that is something that will be a very profitable for us next year. All right. Does anyone have any questions before I go into a demo of our products? Yeah.
On the pricing, you mentioned enterprise license.
Yes.
So how does the overall price change with the scope then? Like how, do you guys just do an annual renewal?
For our clients, yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. We do, for our pricing, what we do is we ask them an estimated number of number one super users and then casual users, and we base the price on that, and then we renegotiate every year. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. All right. Yeah, yeah.
Your transfer from old kit to new kit, how long it took?
Yes, okay. So we started with Astrato officially on January 1st of 2023. We were playing around with it for 6 months prior to that. We had a learning curve, as I said, to learn SQL and learn Snowflake, and Astrato was pretty easy to learn, but the SQL took me a bit of time. So it took us about 5 or 6 months to really get going, and we fully transitioned in about a year. So our clients this summer got off of their Qlik products, and we are retiring. We just termed with Qlik about a month ago. Yeah. Yay. Yes. Yeah.
So if we got an enterprise where
Yeah.
SQL, well-known, Snowflake, let's say, it's established, we say that, oh, switch from A to B, we say it's less than a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could do it in days, depending on what your current setup is. You want to move, but you'll see in the demo how easy it is to do. It's very low code installation. Well, get your shit in place. Yeah, so it's just splitting the bits.
Yes, yeah.
Remove most of the then you move to Astrato,
Yeah.
depending on the bits you want to move. So that's
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah. Our biggest issue was being small and still having to maintain our clients. We couldn't dedicate anyone full-time to being able to do that. And so I was learning SQL at night and doing little bits at a time. So, yeah. Yeah.
What's your team now? You were 3 people in the past. Can you say-
Yeah, we have 30 or 29, 30 starting on Monday. We have 3.
Anything you can say after this migration require any roles or people in your team, or just the growth of the customer you are increasing?
Yes, we have me and the guy that transitioned, and then one part-time because he's also interested in it, but we didn't really need him to build any of the dashboards. He's just kind of interested. So he's kind of our safety net if we continue to grow, but no, we did not need to increase anyone on the visualization front. For data engineering, we did go from just me to people that actually knew SQL before 2 years ago. So yeah, so now we have 4 people on that. Yeah. Yes.
Hey, Melissa. Really fascinating so far. Thank you. Question about your Snowflake costs and where they were attributed. Could you say, I think it sounded like most of them were effectively data pipeline costs to ingest the data from is it Epic, did you say, every day?
Yes, yeah.
Get that in.
So most of our costs were the X12 data. The Epic cost, we actually compared that live client to the only one that the first client that we had to their current setup, and they're running about 3,000 a month. They have 100 users that use the system pretty much all day.
Okay. So when you're talking about a vast reduction in your Snowflake cost, that sounded like it was pretty much entirely on the pipeline side, on the data processing side.
Yes,
Is
yes,
that right?
yeah. The reduction in cost next year will be the pipeline. Yeah.
I wondered if you'd seen any improvements in the sort of user consumption costs, let's say, right? Because of the queries that
Yes.
Astrato will push down based on the improvements that Snowflake has made to their caching
Yes.
and everything. Have you seen?
So as I said, our costs originally were about 30,000, and now if we're doing 3,000 a month, it's roughly the same. That said, they have more users now, and it is significantly faster. We would not have been able to sustain our Qlik environment how it was. We would have had to have upgraded. It was taking 4 to 5 minutes for a Qlik app to open, and every time they clicked on anything, they were waiting 30 or 40 seconds. It was unusable.
It's fair to say you couldn't actually have found that.
No, we could not have. Yeah. Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah. Yes. And we don't have that. In the demo that I will show you, one of the demos, the one that you're seeing there, is a de-identified of one of our clients, and it's roughly 100 million lines of code. Our demos we did not pare our demos down at all. And then the other one is a de-identified version that is in that 1.2 billion rows. We have all of our clients in that, and it's clustered under our demo, and it is well over 100 million rows. Yeah, so you'll see the speeds there. We're using a medium server or medium warehouse for one of them, and then a large warehouse for the other. Anyone else? All right. So the dashboard that you see here is our denials dashboard. Is there any way I can? Sorry, I'm not.
So, disconnected. Maybe let's try again.
Evidence that screen share is more complex than Astrato.
There you go. Thank you.
So let's duplicate. Yep.
All right, perfect. Now you can see my dashboard. All right. So this is our denials dashboard. This is using that Epic data that loads every day. I do want to mention for Snowflake, this was taking roughly 2 hours to load every single day. It is down to 12 minutes for this client. So it is a significant difference in processing time. And the underlying server is actually smaller than the ones that we were using previously. Okay, so in US healthcare, we have denials. What a denial is those, going back to that hospital and the insurance company, the hospital submits something called a claim to the insurance company. The insurance company is supposed to pay it. They don't have the time, and they send back what's called a denial. And this application allows, our applications are really built for that lower level, not lower level, but like the end user, where our dashboards are not built for executives. These are built for people looking at them to find problems. So this is one where a user can come in and look at denials. So in this case, we are looking at denials by the billing providers in the organization and something called denial categories. Denial categories are kind of telling you why the insurance company denied the claim. So in this case, the user, and look at the speed for this, again, well over 100 million lines of data in here. I can see a trend here for a particular provider over time. So I'm going to grab that provider and take a look at that provider's denials. So we can see over time, the provider had a spike in their denials. We can see the total amounts here. We can see on the right-hand side that we have some issues here. It's not super clear with the trending what the biggest issue is, so we can very quickly move to another graph, and we can see, okay, it's coding. I want to look into coding denials. And all right, that's great. Now I have this provider's coding denials. I want to look at something else. So I'll look at, let's see, look at associated remark codes. So I can very clearly see that there is something wrong for this provider. He is getting a lot, he or she is getting a lot of denials here for something called N25, Company for Admin Claims Payment Only. In the US healthcare market, that essentially means they sold their insurance reimbursements to another company, and that company doesn't think that they need to pay. So it's bureaucracy at its finest, but I'm able to look into what those denials are. So now maybe I want to look at what they were denying. I can come down here and look at the individual procedure codes in here. Those are drug codes. So this company is denying for drugs. I really want to look into this denial for this individual provider. It's at well over $1 million at this facility. I can look at trends over time. So you can see for the individual provider. And now I've found an issue that I want to look into. And I can go to custom reporting and build my own report. In some of our custom reports, we have well over 200 dimensions and well over 150 measures that the end user can come in, find whatever their issue is, and then pick the dimensions that they need for whatever that situation is. So we really give a lot of data to our end users when other companies are hesitant to do that or just cannot do that, especially with the Epic data, as I mentioned. They just don't have reporting that is able to do this. So in this case, I've pre-made a report here by picking some dimensions and measures, and I can update the layout here. All right, so I can see individual items when the items were denied, for what they were denied. We were looking at coding things. I can drill into this and look at it if I want to. So if I wanted to look at that 1223 and add more details to this, I cannot type and hold a microphone at the same time, but there we go. Now I can update this quickly and see all of the very minute details of the issues and go back into that host system, look up these patients and either correct them or figure out what that workflow was and what the breakdown was and correct that workflow. So it allows them to build high-level reports of summaries down to, in our industry, a charged transaction is the most detailed version that you can get in an instant. So it really allows you to do those summary monthly reporting and issue reporting very quickly on the fly in the same platform. Questions on the customer reporting or any of the setup? Yeah.
So can customers save these?
Yes. Yeah. So you can save it in a bookmark. You have private and public bookmarks. There's folders within your bookmarks, so you can organize your bookmarks. This is a demo, so there's no bookmarks in it, but Yes, you can share it, and there's specific options in there. You can share it with groups of people, you can share it with everyone. It's just how you want to set it up, but yeah. Yes.
Build a chart or pivot table?
Can you what?
Build a chart or a pivot table.
You can. I don't do that, so you might have to tell me how to do it, but yes, I know. Yes.
On the chart,
Yes.
we do get asked a lot from our customers, they want to be able to change the color coding.
Yes.
Make it look like their own chart. Is that easy to do? Is that possible?
I don't know if I can show that. I don't use those. But there we go. Okay. Yeah. I was like, I'm sure my customers can show you, but yes, I don't typically build the charts. So yeah, here's a very simple one. You cannot change the colors as of yet. You can, I believe, sort the items though. Yeah.
Also the
Yeah.
ability to ask a question.
That is also on our roadmap for 2025. I just asked Randy about that earlier this week or last week. Yeah. All right. Would you like to see anything else or would you like me to hand it over? Okay. All right. So for a more technical side here, we were talking about these charts here where there's drop downs here where you can pick different things and you can pick different charts depending on what you want to look at. We found it very valuable for our analysts to be able to, let's clear out of some of these, to be able to look at different charts depending on what they were looking for. So all of these charts on the top here are all the same data. It's just visualized differently. And it really matters depending on what you've filtered, so we wanted to give that ability to our analysts and our end users so they could come in and pick whatever view that they wanted. So to do that, we set up actions. So, and again, my employee that had no experience, he's the one that set these particular actions up. It looks like a lot here, but it's super simple. You essentially say, if the user changes this, change the name of the chart and change what chart it appears. And these actions here, there's 5 or 6 of them. And I know they're very hard to see because it's so tiny, but they control everything that you see on that screen. It probably took us half hour to set them up. And you can now look at 5 different charts on each side for, 15, 20 different dimensions very quickly. Yeah.
You show us the dashboard in edit mode, perhaps.
Yes, let's see here. All right, here's the dashboard in edit mode. You can see here's one of those variables that we were talking about. Let's see here. And all you do is you put your field name in. So it's not something that is difficult to set up. You literally put in whatever the field name is called and organize it how you wanted. For these graphs, we just have different drop downs. So we have something called, we called it drill down left in this one and drill down right. But in these drill downs in our data model, it is also very simple. Let me open one of those. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on and I cannot see. Here we go. All right. Okay, so this is just the name of those dimensions. It's not hard to set up at all. You just put whatever dimensions that you want in. You put them into that atomic input, and you're all set to pick whatever dimension you want to show up in your reports.
And I think for context, maybe you right-click on a chart.
Yes.
And show data query inside. So every visualization
Yeah.
is effectively producing a SQL as executed.
Yes. So, oh, you added the copy SQL button. I was waiting for that one. So for context, the person that created this dashboard and created this chart here, he cannot do this. He cannot read or write SQL. So he didn't have to know. It is nice for me to see. And it is nice for our data engineers that know more than I do about SQL. But the person that built this this means nothing to him. So you don't need this to be able to build the dashboards.
Do you have another caching layer between Snowflake and Astrato, or is it just the speed of the Snowflake that exceeds the dashboard?
Speed of Snowflake or Snowflake's caching. So Snowflake is very good at caching. That's going to be used. And in this instance, at the bottom left, you see the cache was used, which means if 100 people use the same dashboard, it's calculated once and then returned immediately. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you,
You're welcome.
Melissa. Appreciate it a lot. As I said, a true inspiration what she's managed to achieve with Astrato. It's an absolute pleasure to work, and she grew a business out of it very, very successfully. So congratulations! I didn't know you were 30 people actually.
Yeah. Grown from 5 last year to 30 this year. So, yeah.
Fantastic. So a great example of a data product, right? Dashboard that is monetizable. We'll take a short break. There's coffee. There's some food, I believe. Some chit chats. Come speak to us if you want to. Afterwards, we have Jason Michaelides, who's an implementation partner, who's going to give you a little bit of the migration story. And we have GoBubble CTO, who also has a data product that they're monetizing and they're selling around marketing analytics. Is that fair? So a different angle. And with this, I'll see you all at the lobby. Thank you so much. And story of Melissa was really, really, really great. I didn't want to stop her. So we have 2 more presentations with Jason and GoBubble. And then we have drinks thereafter to continue. So thank you very much for socializing and all the interesting conversations so far. So without further ado, I will be introducing Jason Michaelides from Data Mirrors.
Nothing, mate. It's all right. You've done that.
Data Mirrors? Mirrors?
I'll deal with it.
Who is a Snowflake and Astrato implementation partner, has worked with BI, I think, for a better of 15, 20 years, or since BI existed, knows BI inside out, has done projects. So first-hand experience on how it looks like for an implementation partner from the almost third-party view, vendor-ish agnostic, although, of course, they represent us. Very curious to hear your story so far.
Right, okay. Hello, everybody, and it's going to be a hell of an act to follow Melissa there. That was a very inspirational story, that one. It was really, really cool. The whole startup side of it as well was brilliant. But I think that one of the things we're seeing is how this whole new sort of paradigm and the way that Astrato and Snowflake are connected together and work, or is it Astro? Are connected together. Sorry, Joel, if he's in it. Are connected together, solves many problems for startups and what we're seeing as well in large enterprises, right? It takes people a little while to get their head around things, but actually when they start using it and playing with it, then the ability to solve problems for any scale of organization really starts to come through. So thank you for having me here. And I'm excited to be here to talk about one of my favorite topics in life, which is making life simpler. All right, dad with 2 kids and a dog. Making life simpler is what I am constantly striving to do. And while we're at it, we'll also look at about making it bigger. And finally, we will be able to see that once we have that simplicity and once we have removed those barriers to scale, then we can finally innovate. And with innovation comes new revenue, or at least a reduction in costs, but very, very often actual new revenue. So we'll cover these 3 main tenets in this section of the day, looking into each of them in some more detail, finishing with sort of typical migration approach that we take with our clients, and to get value fast and to get it continuously. There are going to be some repeated messaging here. Some of these principles have been well covered by Martin, by Joel, by Melissa, but I guess that shows how important and real the challenges and the way that we can now overcome those hurdles actually are. So I'm Jason, enterprise architect, which basically means I draw pretty pictures for a living, helping businesses solve challenging data problems. Now, I do see some familiar faces in the room, and as some of you may know, I've spent about 15 odd years working with Qlik in various forms. Qlik View, Qlik Sense, and I co-founded and led the Qlik Dev Group that some of you I know have been to and heard, which was an international organization spread to many, many countries around the world. There's just a sample of them. And we had some really good community events that really helped get the most out of that product. Now, back when I started with Qlik, it was revolutionary, absolutely revolutionary. Databases and the other data stores were slow, and building dashboards was really hard. I came from prior to Qlik through Crystal Reports and Business Objects XI, and they bought Excelsius, and we were doing in Qlik in days what it was taking months to do in Excelsius. So it was suddenly this wonderful, this associative in-memory engine enabled us to overcome so many of those limitations that we had. Back then, I was more of a business analyst, and we could actually create stuff. BAs could create stuff and create stuff that truly added value. It felt at that time that there was nothing we couldn't do. It was brilliant. I can absolutely see, Melissa, why you started with it, right? Having come from that, especially for a startup, you know, once you've got the hang of it, it feels like there was not a lot you couldn't do. And this continued for over a decade. During which time I helped drive the company Calibrate Consulting, who many of you know me from, forward to become a recognized leader in Qlik implementations. We worked with the largest clients that Qlik had, doing some of the most complex implementations that they've ever done. But today, the game has changed entirely. Data is bigger and data is faster, right? And the tools and the architectures like Qlik that we have loved and relied upon for this period, for that well over a decade, are no longer enough to meet those modern business needs. So that's what brings us here today, to see how these cloud native platforms, and truly, you know, built in the cloud, for the cloud, on the cloud, not lifted and shifted, they're actually native to the cloud. Snowflake and Astrato can help us, and they can help us not just keep up, but to leap ahead. Oh, by the way, as well, Qlik know this, right? If any of you are, well, I know some of you here are Qlik customers, not been a whole lot of innovation or investment going into the analytics product. You notice how all the acquisitions and all the improvements are in the data integration side of things, right? And the pipelines, data pipelines, right? They know that their time in the analytics space is limited. They just can't keep up. The architecture, that core architecture that, again, I've loved for so long, it just can't keep up with the modern needs and how data and its uses is changing. Oops, hang on, sorry. It's too big. Right, one more thing then. Aligned with this, I'm also happy to announce that myself and a few other colleagues have spun out of Calibrate Consulting now to create a firm that is fully focused on data and BI migrations to these two amazing tools. And we're now operating under that more focused brand name of Data Tamers. We're still toying with logos and websites and everything like that. So Martin called it Data Mears. That probably says something. So Sam, we might have to look at that. But anyway, this talk is going to reflect, though, my journey and my experience from encountering the limitations of those legacy systems to the real boundless potential that we have with the modern tools. So let's dive in, and let's start with what many of us are familiar with. A typical data architecture, you've got transactional and analytical data sources, files, APIs, manual input forms, all coming from various different systems, extremely familiar to us. Many of you will actually have then a data warehouse or multiple data warehouses, or maybe some kind of consolidated SAP platform, which I suppose could live here as well. And they might be likely to be on-premise. Some of them may be running on EC2 instances, for example, in the cloud, in AWS. Some of you will have bypassed the warehouse entirely to go direct to the analytics products, working in tools like Qlik and Power BI and Tableau. I'm sure this is very familiar to many of you, but it has, and thus the challenges with this will also be familiar. The ones that we often see, and again, reiterating a message that you've heard already a couple of times, of limited scalability. That's the big one. As data grows and speeds up, just can't keep up with these more traditional architectures. Associated with that, you've got the low performance. You know, we said at the top, data's got bigger and faster, so those problems of scale and performance are felt more heavily now than ever. The other clear cost that we have, or challenges that we have, are high operational costs, and we'll dive into that a bit more in a minute. And a big one, which again has been hinted at with some of the other presentations thus far, missed opportunities. Missed opportunities for actually doing more with the data that you have. So the challenges of these limited scalability and low performance, they usually go hand in hand, and they'll be familiar, but they usually occur on both the database and the BI side. And what are the biggest challenges that we have to scaling up the architectures? Well, you have to scale up the whole thing. Yeah, it's just a bigger picture. You have to scale the whole thing to meet that maximum demand, even if that demand is only needed for a short period. And again, this has been hinted at. This is slow to do. This is expensive to implement. This needs lots of specialist skills to do it. And you may be doing it just to hit one piece. Melissa had a classic example, right? Just a one ingestion pipeline needed to, it's nothing about user queries or anything like that, although there are separate challenges with that, but it was the ingestion pipeline. You can't afford the 2 hours there. So if they had to keep with the old architecture, you have to scale the whole thing to deal with just that period. Something that was touched on with Joel's talk earlier was the ability, and it didn't quite go into the detail, but with Snowflake, the ability to scale up mid-pipeline, mid-query, pretty much. So if you had a store procedure that was running and you knew that most of it, a large part of it was just really ingestion, it's just copying data from one source into a target, low resource utilization, run on an extra small warehouse, no problem at all. The warehouse being the weird name that Snowflake have given the compute engine. So it's extra small, but then in the middle of it, once you've ingested that data, your particular scenario means you have to run you have to recalculate an entire year, right? So you've got multiple sources, you have to recalculate an entire year. Well, that's fine. So in your store procedure, you just have a line that says alter warehouse, and it goes up, shove it up to a large, extra large, whatever you need. Run that one computation, that one transformation that would on the extra small take hours and hours, takes 10 minutes, back down, continue with your pipeline. So the ability to use that truly elastic capability has eluded us. Now, it's been promised by cloud computing for a long time, but until this, especially in the data space, until this kind of capability came along, it was never really that feasible. And it was often quite expensive, even though you could turn off EC2 instances. So doing this, slow to do, expensive to implement and maintain. Now, for me, though, these are the more interesting ones. These operational costs, and most importantly, the cost of missed opportunity. Yep, there are some more obvious operational costs. We have potentially high storage costs. You have to pay 24/7 for the compute you may only need sporadically. We've spoken about that. Infrastructure costs, if you're running it on premise, racking in your data center, or cloud infrastructure as a service, if this is usually even more expensive. Also, the license costs generally pretty high. More obviously, historically, Qlik and Tableau, but Power BI, even 40% increase a couple of months ago. So, these license costs are growing. So you're paying for all of this for the privilege of having limited scale and a distinct lack of features as well, compared to more of the modern tools. And you've seen some, and you'll see more from Martin later. But here's the cost that so many companies simply choose to ignore. And I have these conversations so often, and I really still don't quite understand why it's ignored. And Melissa mentioned this as well. It is a very, very real and very significant cost. Let's assume that these guys here are your full capacity for technical advancement. And I'm not talking about just IT administrators, developers. These are analysts. These are tech-savvy business users. They are innovators, basically, and you've all got them in your team. You've all got people who want to do something better, right, out in your business, out for your clients. But this is your capacity for innovation. You've got all of these bright people. But what do these people spend their time doing? Maintenance and performance. Majority of their time is spent on maintenance, on performance management, on workarounds for limitations of scale, and to a lesser extent, features as well. So this is how much innovation capacity is being lost. Simply keeping the underperforming architecture running. And this genuinely is not an exaggerated illustration. In a sobering statistic, in a major project we've recently worked on for a financial services client, and this one was in this architecture. It was Oracle and Qlik. We genuinely found that a good, at least 75, 80%, Sam should say, 80% of our effort was spent really just making Oracle and Qlik work adequately. Work so users weren't sitting there for ages waiting for stuff to happen. Only 20% of the time actually went into defining and building the metrics, the visualizations, and the other tools that really added the value. I know this can't be an unusual story for many of you. So this imbalance between maintenance and innovation is weirdly often ignored when people don't want to move or don't want change or they're too scared or whatever. But it is a critical cost of these legacy applications. So forget your infrastructure costs, just that missed opportunity cost for innovation. So how do we get from this to this? All right, well, we can dive in and find out, but you know what's coming. If we simplify your architecture on a platform that elastically and infinitely scales and vastly reduces your operational costs, if we unify your infrastructure on Snowflake, your data infrastructure on Snowflake, then so many of those challenges and costs just go away. You've got minimal storage costs. Snowflake just pass on the underlying cloud provider storage costs, really. The controllable compute cost. Joel touched on this, Melissa's touched on this as well. Pay as you need it. And with there was a definite reason for my question to you, Melissa, about the caching as well. Snowflake's been around for a few years, quite a few years now. But the more recent improvements they've made to their caching that Martin spoke about as well with Melissa's talk is where you can really start to benefit. So not only can you just scale each use case, so each dashboard, each user group, each however you want to slice your users, what power they need, you can assign an appropriate amount of compute power to that use case. And that is elastic as well, so it can turn itself off when it's not being used. But even when it is being used, if multiple people are going through the same warehouse, then which is the same compute engine, then the caching kicks in. And if your data isn't changing every minute, then it's going to be optimal. Even if it's changing regularly, not all of it is usually. So the caching will still be very effective. But you can see some huge reductions in the compute times after the first one. You've got, these have been covered, no infrastructure maintenance costs. You've got no database maintenance costs. You've got optimal pipeline development costs. So what I mean is your pipeline development is focused on the business needs, not just on trying to make something work, because you have a limited architecture, you have a limited amount of power you can throw at it. See the above example that I was talking about with just scaling up the compute halfway through a pipeline and then back down again. So your development is about need, not managing the scale. You've got effectively an unlimited scale, and you've got lots and lots of modern features, and we'll touch on some of those. Same with Astrato, 0 core storage costs, no compute costs. Low, I've put low, sorry Martin, I put low Astrato license costs. Let's call that comparatively low. I think we can say it's always going to compete very well to those traditional BI costs purely on license. And that's when you don't even take into account the other associated costs that we've been talking about. Again, like Snowflake, no infrastructure maintenance, no Astrato maintenance, and optimal Astrato development costs. Development focused on business need only, not on working around limitations of scale especially, which is what we've done so often. And the live write back is a huge game changer for any of you who've struggled with that before. Now you can truly build applications that, because you've got that instant feedback loop, because you can immediately act on the results of an input, then the opportunities open up. With Qlik before, you could write back. Vislib made a fairly effective way of writing back, but again, it was always working out a limitation. Qlik always needed to reload in order to get the result back, unless you put more effort in to building a mashup that read it from a direct data source, link them all together, but that needed specialist skills and a lot of time. So it could be done, we've done it, but it wasn't easy. Okay, viewing it a little bit differently, and I'm going to start whizzing through these because I know we are running out a little bit of time, but you've got a lot of complexity, and I wanted just to focus on, does this work? There we go. Oh, it doesn't work on the screen. On this one here, this is a big one. Separate environments for dev, test, and production. Who here has a development or a test environment that has perfect production representative data? 3 of you, more than I thought. 4, sorry, than I thought. In the multiple, you've never had it, I know that. The multiple clients, many clients we've worked with over the years, no one's ever had it. Especially when you're dealing with data that is sensitive even from one area of an organization to another. And that provides so many problems. The amount of arguments and desperate calls and discussions I've had with clients saying, we need some data that has matching volume, that has matching velocity, that has matching variety, matching veracity. Nice 4 V's of big data. There's a 5th one, value, but that's not relevant in this context. And they just don't have it. And what does that mean? Okay, well, I'm going to build it on the data you give me, but I don't know if it's going to work. When we have the real data, what level of confidence you got? We'll give it a try. And something always goes wrong, and then you have to fix it, either in prod or at least using the lessons from prod anyway. So some of the features in Snowflake, like 0 copy clone, mean that you can have effectively, and combine that with dynamic masking, and you can have your dev and test environments actually using production data with no impact to your production workflows, with no impact to those. And with the dynamic masking whatever sensitive parts of the data that you need to. But you're maintaining the velocity, you're maintaining that veracity and that volume. And given that the volume and velocity are the 2 things that are growing faster than anything, that's where it becomes really important. So for me, that is one of the single biggest features and advantages for safe development and safe deployments of new apps. Right. But the unification of the whole ecosystem, that symbiotic partnership of Astrato and Snowflake, where Astrato never copies the data, it just doesn't. It just runs a query against Snowflake and visualizes the results in a rather beautiful way. Can really start to simplify your architecture. The scale, you can't scale at the moment without amplifying all of the existing complexities and the costs. You might want to give customers access to large scale data. but you can't. But with a migration to Snowflake and Astrato, you do get all of this. You'll get those true elasticity, those performance gains, the zero downtime development that we've spoken about, and Joel mentioned a bit earlier as well. And the unlimited BI, because Astrato scales as Snowflake scales. Right. There will be a hugely significant lost opportunity cost, as we've discussed. And if you're in the business of selling valuable products to your customers, then with the right platform, your scope to create more of these will obviously increase. In fact, it should really skyrocket because you can just focus on them. And often, all you need to do is sell on basic, out-of-the-box features that Snowflake and Astrato will give you. We've spoken about them. The zero-copy clone is one. The data collaboration, data marketplace, and data sharing capabilities of Snowflake. Has anyone here heard of data clean rooms in the context of Snowflake? A few of you, yeah? Well, if you're in the business of using data that maybe you pay for to provide a service to your clients, how about you give access to query that data directly to your clients for a cost? But using a data clean room, you can give them access to query the data without actually giving them the data. And you control what types of queries they can run, what sort of data is returned back to them. So becoming a provider, letting other people be a consumer. If you're in the business of data in a data sharing, a market share analysis, as I know some people here are, then you allow benchmarking. Okay, but without ever giving people access to the data. So these are just some of the ideas, the out-of-the-box features you can pass on. And importantly, you can then focus on those revenue-generating opportunities, not keeping the lights on. Right, coming to the end. I wanted to just show a single slide on a sort of implementation approach. It's not rocket science, this. A lot of you would have seen it before, but it is so much easier now. Right, so much easier now to do it. So this is to illustrate that a cloud migration can be easier than you think. And you don't have to commit to a large spend until you're sure that it's right for you. So typically, we would take the approach of project zero, project one, your first project, a POC or a real project. This should take a matter of weeks, not months. And it must be a real world project, right? So that you can properly assess the impact. So you must be able to benchmark against something that you're currently doing or something that you know you want to do that you can measure against. So we pick a targeted, limited project that will prove one or more of the claims that we've been talking about here. Does it simplify things and therefore provide a cost reduction? Does it overcome a technical hurdle, usually scale? Or does it generate new or increased revenue by creating a new product? We recently did a proof of concept for a bank, for a financial services client. They were really struggling to manage limits within their risk management framework. And as you can imagine, this is a pretty fundamental and ever more critical need for financial services within the regulatory context. And the speed and the effectiveness of the POC was, well, they were very impressed by it. I'll ask Martin maybe if you could, I think you've got it, if you can demo that maybe a bit later. It's quite neat. Now, once you've proven this first one, next comes your full migration. When I say full migration, it's not one step. You don't try and do everything, boil the ocean, choose your metaphor, but do it very, very iteratively, making sure you get value from every single cycle. Okay? Again, none of this is rocket science, but it is really important to keep that value coming, to keep that value cycle going. By the end of this, then, you'll be able to retire your existing platforms and shift into full profit realization mode, where you then go into a never-ending cycle of innovation, hopefully. Hopefully your business is always innovating. Hopefully you're always doing things better, bigger, faster, whatever, a way of getting value to your customers. So instead of having such a large team that are just maintaining the status quo, that attention can be fully diverted to the product innovation. Right, yes. A common response. Next year, maybe I have to plan for it next year. Firstly, I have a natural desire just to always move forward. I think if you're just moving forward, generally you're going in the right direction, even if it's maybe a slightly wiggly line somewhere. Still better than just standing still. If you're committed to 2025 costs for licensing and infrastructure, well, if you use this year to migrate, then it'll be the last year of those costs, and you need them to do the benchmarking anyway, right? So maybe you've just renewed your BI licenses for a year. Gives you a great opportunity to use this year to build them in parallel, these new systems, test them, and roll out project by project. The same for any infrastructure as a service costs, if applicable. And one thing I would say actually that many of you may not know, if you're already committed, I don't know if this is just AWS, we can ask the Snowflake guys, but if you're already committed to an AWS spend, there is a way that you can shift that spend to Snowflake on AWS. Okay, so that committed spend that you've got, depending on the type of license deal you've got with AWS, if you go through the marketplace, then you can usually shift that spend. So we can talk to the Snowflake account executives about that. We've just discussed the amount of costs you're likely incurring with skilled personnel being occupied, just keeping the lights on. Why delay diverting those to revenue generating activities? Why wait to start them? Okay, that's it really. In conclusion, I think you're most likely, even if you don't know it, you're most likely brilliantly positioned to transition your product systems and services to these two fairly special cloud native platforms, reaping those benefits of simplifying to save costs, of scaling to future-proof yourselves, and reduce those hidden innovation loss costs, monetizing new features, building new subscription products. Yeah, I mean, that's it. If there's anything else that you want to dive into, then everyone's offered up there. We'll be hanging around for a few beers, so do feel free to come and talk to any of us, either us or any of the people who've been up here today, any of the Astrato or Snowflake guys. Thank you for your time. Hope it was very useful and gives you a real look at what is possible with the wonderful new technologies that are within easy reach, and me and these two colleagues of mine are hovering about as well. Wave, Dashika. Wave, Sam. There we go. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. If you've got any questions, you can answer now or later. Any questions now, or should you can catch me later? Martin's itching to move on. I've been getting finger signals. 2 minutes left. All right, nice one. Should I take this away?
Thank you so much, Jason. Wonderful. We have one last presentation that I'm very, very excited about. So GoBubble is a company specializing in emotion AI-powered content moderation to create safer and more inclusive digital environments. And yeah, how they're using analytics to surface, I think, those insights. I'm very excited to introduce to you GoBubble CTO, Claudio. Thank you so much for being here for us from Dubai as well.
Thank you guys for having me here. I'll just use them. Thank you, everyone. I think my colleagues did a great job explaining why Astrato and Snowflake are great. And I know it's almost beer o'clock, so I'll be quick, I promise. So I'm going to run you through what the product is in brief and why we choose to use Snowflake and how Snowflake and Astrato are actually the best product for us. So as we said, we are specialized in emotion AI. So we build a proprietary model in AI, and we use, and the core model is detecting emotion in any kind of source of information. Our solution can help you to protect your followers if you're talking about social media, or your kids if we're talking about any other products, or your employees if we're talking about more corporate or enterprise solution like emails or a social app or any proprietary app or website that you have for any kind of intranet. Our mission is to enable safer, kinder, and healthier online communities with data-driven tools and analytics that promote positive engagement and informed decision. the first things that we do is understanding the emotion, and how we understand our emotion based. We try to use contextual meaning. So we do not do moderation. We do not understand emotion based on a single phrase. We try to capture the whole context. If we're talking about a chat or a post, we capture the post, we understanding what the post is about, and then each comment and each thread inside the comment, how it relates to the post or the other comments. So we're not working in isolation with each comments. These allow us to have fewer false positive, which is a big problem when we're talking about moderation, especially in a social network, and especially in environments that are quite toxic and creative, like sports, for example. Most of our customers are in sports, and you can see how toxic sports environments are. And now some people can use colorful language to say something that maybe in the context is actually right. Of course, as I was saying, our solution is a comprehensive solution. So we have multiple social networking platform. The product that we're talking about right now is called Freedom to Hear, and it works mostly with social platform like Meta, Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, X, and TikTok is one of the next features. And we can do this in any kind of content, which is text, images, emojis, GIFs, video, because most of the new generation, they communicate a lot with emojis and not with words. So that was one of the new challenges that we had to face. Always, everything is tailored to our customer needs. So we create model and custom models to make sure that our customer can have the right type of moderation according to their needs. Because if we're working with a corporate environment, is different if we're working with, I don't know, school, or if we're working with a sports environment. They all have different needs. I'm just going to give you an example. If we work with a customer that is in the chess environment, the word black is not offensive. It's just as a color of the piece of the chess. In other environment, it could be in a context offensive. So these kind of things makes big difference when we build a model for our customers. This is a screenshot of our dashboard. Unfortunately, I couldn't do a live demo. It would have been a lot cooler. Apologies for that. But what we do, we have a real-time monitor of any kind of source that you plug in. We have API or connection straight away to your social network. In the future will be also Twitch and Discords. And what we do, we identify the sentiment first, so hate or non-hate, and then we identify the categories. So it could be a religious hate, anti-LGBTQ, harassment, or any kind of these categories that we define, or we also define with our customer for custom solutions. Then what we do, and here's where Astrato and Snowflake comes in, we provide dashboard for analytics. Our customer loves playing with data, 100%. That's what they want. Before the dashboard, they want to see the reports on how everything is affecting their social page, how it's affecting their company, and there was nothing better than Astrato to have this kind of solution for our customer. How everything started is with one dashboard for each customer. So we're building a new customer, new dashboard. But of course, that was not scalable at all. So just to give you an example of what kind of data we have some pie chart that gives us an idea of the categories that we block, how many posts per day are red or green, classic color for hate or non-hate. And we have a summary of the content inside of a specific post that is in your page or in a specific post that you're going through the analytics. We have also these bar charts for the different categories. So by color, you can identify which categories is the most, the one that is affecting the most your page and the toxicity. And then the kind of comments by platform, like in this example, we have Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. As you may know, it's everything super dynamic. You can click on any of these bar and it becomes automatically a filter. So you can just click and you apply as a filter and you can change instantly everything and review the information as you want. Another very cool feature is that easy to export. Everyone, as Melissa said, they like to play with Excel. Let's be honest. So you can just right-click on any of these charts, and it allows you to export in a CSV and play with the data and showcase your data in a different environment. This is another example. We have hidden comments, the repeat offenders, because you could block repeat offenders if they are too toxic in your channels. And you can see the sender with the most comments in the different platform. Another example here, you can see the total amount of comments, that we blocked, the kind of variation during the different days, and the percentage of toxicity. Now, as I was saying before, we had one dashboard for each customer, which was not scalable at all. So thanks to the technology provided by Snowflake and Astrato, we managed to create what we call the unified experience. So now with a series of query, it's super easy to onboard a new customer and automatically generates a new dashboard for each customer with all the customization that we want without any effort. We build it once, it's going to work forever with no problems. There was no actual pre-Astrato or pre-Snowflakes for us. We built the whole project starting from scratch with Snowflake and Astrato. So I can't really tell you how it was before and if it was better without or not. But I can tell you that if we managed to build everything, was thanks to these two technologies. It's very easy to use. The customer loves the user experience, and you can customize every part of the UI to make sure that it's embedded in your website, which is what we have. Our analytics are inside the website, so they're not going outside. It's everything embedded through the public links, and it's super quick. Now, how and why they work well together? Well, we already talked about it, but Snowflake is a lot cheaper for us in our use cases, and it's super quick. It allows us to use our credits for whatever we want, so we don't have to dedicate specific amount. So if we're using more stuff, more technologies in one direction, it's fine. If we're using more technology in another direction, it's fine. It doesn't matter. It's one of the privilege that we had thanks to the role-based access control was to create the unified experience through Astrato. I'd say that there's many reasons why someone can choose to work with Astrato-Snowflake. But I think it's also important to say why we choose to stay with Snowflake and Astrato. And it's thanks to people like Pierce and James that they basically make you feel like part of the team. And it's one of the kind of experience that you don't always have. We have meeting with them constantly, and they provide us solution. They give us everything we need in terms of the product. They understand the product. They work with us on the product. They're not just selling something. They're building something with you, which is the biggest reason why we are super happy with these products, and we're going to keep working with them probably for a long time. So as promised, that's quite quick. Now we're going to the next step, which is what we're trying to do now. And it's one of also the coolest feature that we have for Astrato, which is single element embedded. So what our customer wants is not just a big page of all the analytics together. They want to see in each page a specific type of analytics, a specific dashboard, and you can, or just a small chart, and you can easily do that embedding small pieces in 8 different pages. And it's very quick and very easy. And something that we also will explore is Snowflake Cortex Search and Analytics. Because now everyone is addicted to just prompt, just create a text and get a result of whatever is happening in your website or in the analytics, everything prompt generated. And Snowflakes provide that with a very cool set of features. So these are our next step with you guys. And that's pretty much it. Thank you, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions.
We've spoken about high level, but we never showed the product other than Melissa. So I'm going to do a very quick rundown so you see it a little bit in action, presented by myself, but we can always follow up if you want to. And then we have drinks, more drinks later on. And I think, Pierce, there's also more coming afterwards. I think so. Anyway, so so you heard about the why, the how, and the technological value proposition of Astrato, and I can show you dashboards for days. But I think one important thing that we made sure from a product design perspective is we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We want to make sure that dashboards behave in the same way that how people are familiar and already used to, be it making selections, drilling down in visualizations, or even selecting ranges. So it all kind of behaves and works intuitively. In a sense, how people already use. So we are effectively taking the best of the best when it comes to that. I think, however, one question I was asked today is like, okay, it's great, but how customizable is it really? So here are a couple of examples on the same data set on how much flexibility we made sure Astrato offers. So various shapes and formats on how a dashboard can be presented, even in dark mode, which obviously is very, very familiar to VI. But the point being is, right, I think this is one of the key weaknesses I found myself with other BI tools that I have been working with in the past, is the ability to meet every requirement that you have, any corporate branded guideline, and having the ability to deliver on any design with your BI tool without it being restricted with BI specific capabilities has been something that we found we made quite religious about. So, we have a lookbook with various designs and shapes, which is really cool. You can even create some nice infographics. But really, we want to go beyond just pretty visualizations, which we do, I think, pretty well. But one such example is when we speak about self-service BI and bringing data, to the frontline stuff, and for anyone, is that people consume data in different ways. And you know what? Every dashboard actually is a beginning of a story. Here I see my KPIs across different marketing channels, and it's all great. And that's how 80% of the users probably will use it. They'll filter down. But then they have a question. I want to see revenue by year for Bing channel. And that's not there. So what do? So I can go into the table, people go and they export it to Excel, which works, there's no judgment there. Or they go to the BI developer and they say, hey, can I have one more chart, revenue by year? Can you make it a bar chart, please? Yes, but I have so much more other stuff to do, and you create a BI backlog. So where we think is the custom report that Melissa showed earlier, which is your tiny little self-service corner. So it's your little environment on a published data set that allows any end user to build their own report as if they're going shopping to Tesco's or Walmart, like 100 measures, pick and choose which ones you like. Without being a BI developer, you can construct your own report here, look at it, and then also save it as a bookmark if you want it, or share it with others effectively. So you're creating almost a self-service, ask a question, get an answer in a very kind of familiar way. Because at the end of the day, right, if you look at the pivot table here, I mean, that's what they would do anyway, export to Excel and build a power pivot. So they might as well do this in Astrato on a published data set. Of course, it doesn't just end there, right? You can have visualizations, and then also, why not ask it a question, And let's see if I can type. I was a bit rushed, so a couple of spelling mistakes. But thankfully, OpenAI and GenAI. Oh, sorry. Which year did Bing have the highest revenue? And what it did is it looked at all my measures, dimensions, parsed the question, and actually said, look, you want to look at this bar chart effectively. So a nice question and answer kind of mechanism that is enabled now with generative AI that allows you to continue your journey perhaps on week or perhaps traffic source. So I think that is one interesting thing. It may start with a dashboard and would become a self-service report, a question and answer in all one single unified experience. Obviously, I can show visualizations and dashboards, for ages. We have lots of examples. I think we also have a little insight advisor here that, of course, allows you to summarize a chart, a visualization, and to basically interact to it very soon also with a chart interface. Again, people like looking at charts, give them charts. People look at linear reports, that's good. Others want to see a short summary and then compare it, right? So, and the beauty is, behind the scenes, we're not doing generative AI, we are connecting to OpenAI or to Cortex or elsewhere, and we're surfacing that, though, in one single experience. Question there?
Yeah, that's not like the Gen AI integration. Is Gen AI, or do you have to train the model on what your data fields need in the context? Is that a sort of training that you do for specific to data sets?
So we don't train the model. We assume that you have a pre-trained model, or you can train the model probably in Snowflake, on Cortex, on the data. What we do, however, and I'll get to that, we can give Gen AI the context of, what dimensions and measures, for example, are you looking at? Maybe it's this marketing data. You can add more context behind the scenes, right? If you remember the data products, the three, this is a data domain, effectively, that again is in the hands of whoever owns this application. Now, what I find quite interesting is and thankfully Melissa showed it, this is how it looks like behind the scenes. So we made it religious that somebody can build dashboards and analytics without using a keyboard. So we want to be as self-service as possible, as if you're using perhaps a PowerPoint presentation. So it's all super flexible. You can position things anywhere you want on the screen. So it's super versatile. It still follows the concept of dimensions and measures if you want to build something. But you'll probably see, right? I'm building a mini dashboard example with just one hand. And I think that is one design principle that we're trying to follow. Behind the scenes, right? Again, technologically, no secret. It's SQL that we're generating. I don't want to overwhelm you with that, but it means, first of all, full lineage. Go back to Snowflake, you can see exactly where the data came from. You have full transparency and where data came from. Secondly, it also means it's as fast as Snowflake. I don't know if it's 100 rows or billion rows, and I don't care from an Astrato perspective, and it's real time. The latest version of Snowflake is what you will always see. Where it becomes interesting, and some of you mentioned that today as a presentation, is write back, because we don't just do select, we can do insert, we can do update. And what does it mean if I can do select and insert update? Well, basically, what is supposed to be a dashboard is all of a sudden slowly turning into a data entry tool. So I'm looking at my people, I want to use the same UI here to drill down perhaps, and to look and use Astrato as a way to provide, my annual feedback loop. A very simple feedback channel that I can use here in the UI to write data back into Snowflake from the same UI where I'm analyzing the data. So here's the comment that was posted. By the way, anyone aware of time travel in Snowflake? I'm becoming very feature focused. So time travel is basically the ability to get historic versions of your data without having to maintain copies of it, which is actually super powerful for zero copy clone and many DBA movements. But you can also use it as a filter in Astrato. So you can actually go back in time to the beginning of my presentation here and see that comment did not exist here. So it's actually quite interesting now as we're entering operational use cases beyond just dashboards to data apps and applications, that you can track changes. You can track who changed what happened, how did it evolve in your full lineage and audit logs. Speaking about data products, I think this was kind of important. Think about a data product about your monthly financial reporting. You have dashboards, okay, get it. It's very difficult to get anybody off Excel, and we don't want to, of course, so this is going to be an enhancement. You have your tables, your income statement, your balance sheet, nicely summarized. But we use Excel for planning. We put in inputs. Why can't you just wrap it into a data application here that allows you to look at every single item and post adjustments as you speak? So do your planning directly in the same UI, where you're basically also visualizing and reporting on your data. So you saw, I just wrote a comment with an adjustment, but it didn't go through. Is that a bug or is it a feature? Because actually, here are the adjustments, and somebody actually has to approve it, right? So now we're talking about multi-stage write back, where somebody with different permissions needs to pass it through. So you can use now the UI here. Here we go, the adjustment got posted. As a way to collaborate. So anything that lives in a spreadsheet, for example, typically, you can transform it into a data application that effectively I call now a data product there. So I'll take this example. I'm going to abstract it a little bit towards telco churn, and I'll speak about it though in your language. Okay, so I'm an insurance broker. I can see at any given time here all my policy holders in aggregate, right? It's a recurring business, and I can also see the ones. Martin Mahler is my name. I can see, actually my personal accounts, so I can drill down to them. And you will see there's a little record here, which is, whoa, okay, deeply in the risk factor. So you see here, actually, the churn risk is 85%. I'm going to lose them. Probability adjusted based on historic data, I'm going to lose them. That's something that was pre-calculated for me in a Python model. It's a static piece of information, but it's something that drives behavior now. So I'm looking at this customer, and I'm saying, well, wait a minute. Instead of losing them entirely, maybe I can speak to them and get them a reduced policy, or maybe less coverage. What if I go, how much are I paying? 7,000. What if I go in and I say, look, let's bring them to a lower package. What is the probability that they're going to renew? So all of a sudden, this now becomes an input to the Python model, right? Request for quote, calculate probability. And you see here that the churn risk went down to 5% based on historics. So actually, based with this calculator, I can go back with this new pricing, 2,000, and potentially save the account effectively. So now this is a blend of analytics, drill down, supplemented with advanced information such as lead scoring and churn risk calculations, with the ability to input and do what ifs that allows me to work in one single application. And that's effectively now, a data app, data product. Looking at this, so you can model it any way you want. And just to conclude this almost, or maybe I want to do a quick, see the data from a different angle. Now here's the custom report, again, implemented, so I can look at a data set in my own personalized way. Or once I'm happy with everything, and this is now where the reporting comes in, I'm not going to get away without having something in Excel sent to management. So I will do this, right? I will call this the Martin month-end report. I'm going to export it as Excel. You can automate it. You can send it via email. In this instance, I'm just going to generate it ad hoc. So you see the output for 1 second. And that's a little bit part of the beauty. It can be a dashboard that you want to see. It can be a table. It can be something that you work with, your data entry. Or it can be also a static report produced to you on a scheduled, on an ad hoc basis. And while it's being prepared, we can answer one question. Yes. So you can schedule those reports. Here we go. Report is ready for download. Alerting. Yes. And I'll come a little bit to this. So this is a report. Astrato, Martin, month end. It includes a screenshot of all the dashboards, includes all my tables, nicely formatted in Excel. We're talking here an Excel report, not just a data dump. A formatted Excel report is ready to be uploaded to SharePoint and be signed off by a board, for example. And of course, if I go here, you see this is the comment that I added. And somewhere here, there's the adjustment I posted, right? So that becomes part of your experience effectively. I'm not saying we are an Excel solution, but it has to be there. If you don't have it, well, then you probably need to figure out differently, and Excel is here to stay, or static reporting is here to stay, and all of that can be done in one single experience, and all the data comes consistently from Snowflake, from the same underlying data model. No, you can cycle it as well. I think this is an example where I'm going to cycle it. It's going to take a bit longer because it goes through different selections, but you can cycle them as well. Yeah, it's a classic. The mobile experience is, so I'll give you, mobile is very difficult in BI, and I'm having so many debates. I'll give you my take, which obviously is the Astrato take. The way we are structured and designed and developed is that we're a browser, effectively. Right? You can open Astrato in a browser if you like to. Now, if you use this page as an example, you can have a separate page for mobile, such as this one. that just shows the same data, but at a different angle. As a matter of fact, with Astrato, we can check, are you on mobile or are you on desktop? And depending on where you are, I will send you to that page. Otherwise, if you're desktop, I'll put you on that page. So you have to create two versions, and then you guide the user where they want to go effectively. Conclude is, look at this, an advertising spend optimizer. Works with Python, with a Python model that gives anybody the ability in the marketing team to do what-if simulations on how they want to allocate different kind of budgets, and based on past prediction. Effectively, these are parameters that are being passed on to a model in Snowflake, calculated, and then visualized in Astrato as a result table. So using that, this goes beyond analytics. So I don't like calling Astrato BI tool, because it goes beyond BI. It has write back, it has Python. It's a data app, but now we're talking about functional things. So I like the term actually data products, because at the end of the day, each one of them is almost like a little company with its own product that is being managed by the team that owns it. Oh, here's the report. So one is for Europe, for North America, and for Pacific. The cycling takes a little bit longer. I don't know if you noticed, by the way, here on the right-hand side, this is a natural language generated overview of the page that is separate for each single selection report. So this is just generated by GenAI. So next to the charts, you can also have a little description being generated. I don't know how insightful, valuable that is, but assuming with a new, 500 billion investment that is happening on Starlight, these are going to become 180 IQ analysts that are going to be writing for us. So we can surface that insight. This is done via actions, so you can have multiple reports, and then you cycle the actions effectively. A lot of power, because you can cycle a lot of loops, but that's the flexibility that offers you. That's a good point. Okay, very quickly, 1 minute, and then we conclude. Thank you all for your patience. I've connected to Snowflake. I create a new data view. Because it's always great when you look at a demo which is ready and looks beautiful and works nicely, and then you start your own, you're like, oh my God, this is far from real. Now you understood the secrets of a vendor. So here's my Snowflake instance on the left-hand side. I can see all the tables, schemas I have access to, and I can fish and include, any data set that is relevant to me that I want to have analyzed. Now, the thing is, am I sure about this table? You can always have a quick, sneak preview. Is that the table I want to? Yes, I'm very happy. Beautiful. I selected the data. And off I go here with what are these things here? So these are obviously tables, right? And that's a schema. I'm a business user. I have no idea what a table is or a schema. I just know data. So either I have to manually define the joins, if I know what I'm doing, or in the world of Astrato, we provide join suggestions. So we try to be quite smart for somebody who's not technical to have the ability to quickly apply and connect these things. One of them slipped, but that's not an issue because you can hover it over here and then apply it and then connect it. Wonderful, and that's as far as it goes. Maybe that's where your analysis quickly ends. I'll put some order quantity. So you see, you can already start, doing some high-level analytics here. Maybe not color, product name. Here we go. And that's it. Maybe I'm happy. All I wanted to do is quickly query the data in Snowflake, and I've done this fairly quickly using Astrato. And you see here behind the scenes, we generate this query here, so you don't have to worry about the joins. Or maybe I'm happy and I want to now create my workbook. And this is where, we go now to the blank canvas, like a PowerPoint presentation. Very soon you will be able to generate the dashboard on its own. We'll get there. I don't think we're far off. But you see here, I can already start, fairly simple to build some things without much effort, effectively. With one hand. Elsa.
Mention themes.
Oh, yes, correct. So obviously I can style every single bit that you see on the screen. It's super, flexible. You can choose the colors, control them. But with a lot of color customization, the question is, how do I standardize it? And this is where we have on a workbook level the concept of themes that you can choose different themes that you can also maintain and work with. Yeah, question over there? Yeah. So the data is coming from Snowflake. We are querying the data at runtime. We're populating the Excel report at runtime, and then we are providing you the Excel report to you to download effectively. So I don't think it is being stored at any point. It's like a blob link effectively, although I don't know how that works. No, via email, it's also attached to the email, so it stores and lives in the email. Is that a technical question or like from a, yeah? And that is actually, well, I don't think we're storing it. We're deliberately not storing any data or customer data at any point in time, ever, is our philosophy across the product. We always display data in transit, never at rest, is how we positioned. When it comes to Excel, I mean, the way this works is kind of interesting, which is super simple to implement. I'll be, Melissa, you'll be very delighted probably if you've not already tried this. The concept is that you're basically uploading an Excel template into Astrato, an empty template, and then you tell Astrato in which row and which column you just populate which data or table effectively. So if you already have an Excel template like this being produced manually, upload to Astrato and then tell it where to update the numbers, and then it's probably half a day's work and you have something that's fully automated, assuming the data is in Snowflake. We primarily our best work with Snowflake, but having said that, we connect to anything that speaks SQL in particular. I would say BigQuery is very advanced as well, so they have also Python support or Databricks. Very slow, but it's maybe a bit better on, I would say, on the Python or the Spark workloads, although again, these things change every quarter and they become very, very competitive. But the idea is, that reality is sometimes you have more warehouses, right? So in Astrato, you can connect to one at any time, and you can also switch if you wanted to or needed to. But at the moment, that has never been necessary, unless, of course, you want to switch from a Snowflake dev environment or production to production or stuff like that. That's what we built it for. But there are some features in Snowflake that are not available elsewhere, such as time travel, right? I think BigQuery or Databricks may have a variation from that, but it's not necessarily like for like. But I would say 90% is very, very similar and the same, except Google Sheets, which is very basic. Yeah, so there's a big discussion, but I think we're all largely aligned there. I think what we want to do is there's Cortex AI or LLMs in general, pre-trained and so on. We want to surface them across the product for better analysis and analytics. And that can come in many shapes and forms, right? So I showed here, I want to ask it a question, produce me a chart. That's one use case. I want to have the ability to just chat with my dashboard with all the data and the context that's there. At the moment, it's prompt-based, but it'll become a chat. But you're chatting with Cortex, you're not chatting with Astrato. And the last bit, I think that is equally important is, on the report generation, maybe you want to have it part of the experience. So have natural language generated text that is accompanying you on the analysis, because some audience just finds this too difficult to read. And we go into data literacy and the thing, but reality is meet the user where they are rather than trying to educate them. And this is where text narratives, which could also be play a sound, could be translated into voice, is very interesting. Where I'm most excited about, speaking about self-service, is I want to make it even easier or as easy as ever possible to build visualizations in charts. It starts from a single chart. It starts from perhaps the ability to just, the best way to make a dashboard more readable, add titles on your charts visualization. Sounds so simple. People don't do this. But we can generate them automatically, right? Why not? That's a very simple, repetitive task. Can we perhaps use this model to generate the entire dashboard that you're seeing here? Can we use it to generate measures as an example? And I think, we even have this here, I believe, when I go into data, create a new measure instead of choosing one here. Let me try. Generate revenue for country Sweden and females between age 30 and hopefully this works. But take a question, right, and then translate that into a KPI or a measure that is interesting to you. I think generally this is where a lot of prompt-based building and instructions are headed to. And, oh wait, it did something. Hey, I said revenue. It shows sales amount. See, context. It says revenue, gave me already the title, but and it summed my sales amount. And if I expand here, you will see, all right, it failed here a little bit. It didn't know between age group. But you see, supporting you in that journey on developing. And the thing that I'm also excited about is what happens before the dashboard as well. So if I were to, and this is the last thing, I promise. So let's try a demo data. Here we go. Who has loaded or worked with SAP data before? Okay. I'll show you what the experience is, okay? Classic use case, moves SAP data into Snowflake, and then do some analysis. So over I go. We have some SAP data here. I'm going to select the entire schema. Here we go. I'm going to work with it. This is SAP data. 4-letter abbreviations coming from a German company, by the way. Spart, Knur, liefert, erdat. This is the reality of SAP. I don't know if you recognize SAP SD. Sales distribution, obviously. But your average user who is not an SAP, how are they going to analyze this data or even do anything with that? Thankfully, it's standardized. So at least that's the thing Germans are good at. Now we have joint suggestions in Astrato, so we can look at the keys and the quality of the keys. So we can first of all connect the entire schema here with you. So this is how it's all connected. But I want to rename this, right? I need to rename this in something more business friendly. But since it's standardized, maybe we can use AI to do this for me. And I don't know how well you can see it, so I'm going to zoom out so you fully recognize the 4-letter abbreviations. But since they're standardized, and then since they're a standard schema, GenAI will recognize these things immediately, right? So here we go, you have the renames. Trust me, happy times, it works. So actually, I'm just going to apply it all. So it helped me completely prepare the data for consumption and analytics in this instance. Now, wait a minute, security, AI, and so on. Well, that's the point on Astrato is like we basically allow you to bring your own AI provider. So instead of worrying whether we keep it secure, we have here under system, I think AI, so you can choose your own AI provider. So basically you bring your own LLM that we connect to effectively. We have one for demo purposes, of course, right? But it's, you bring your own LLM, they know, and then you have all that thing working out very, very nicely. And I think that's where it's going. Thank you very much. This has been a pleasurable afternoon. Also, a huge thank you again to our speakers, Melissa, Jason, and Claudio, of course. So really, really nice stories. Obviously, get in touch if you want to hear more.